The director of Eight Versa. He joins me now from London. Chris, great to have you on the show. You were listening to my interview with Witold, and he said that the EU's put up ambitious ecological policy. But when you look at sort of whether they are environmental groups or animal protection groups, it's not hard to see their unhappiness with the Commission's new plans to sort of scale back certain goals. I mean, has Brussels favored discontented farmers over sort of long-term climate change goals?
Potentially, but then that's probably a much better move. I think there's a tendency right now in the broader sustainability and net zero agenda, and potentially so over the last 18 months to 2 years, is that the urgency is bearing down. So it's a case of just be overly ambitious regardless of the means and the ability. And I think we've got to be a bit more intelligent, and this particularly is aimed at the European Commission here. You've got to have a very, very clear, defined pathway as to how to achieve your goals rather than just regulating everything into existence.
If this is a better move, then what's not to say that that Brussels will not sort of be committed to meeting further targets down the road when it comes to the climate crisis?
Perhaps. I think the thing is, there's a tendency, I think, to maybe lecture and kind of be to take somewhat of an ivory tower position in some of this climate net zero agenda, and we see more and more in our perspective of helping organisations work towards net zero. The consultation and the engagement piece is absolutely pivotal, and we're seeing so much pushback all over the place, geographically and politically, and there's not enough work going into bringing along the people who have to do the heavy lifting along with the journey. Rather, it's tended to be, you've got to do it, and we're going to regulate and mandate it into policy, rather than taking people on the journey and getting them on board and explaining why and turning it into a business positive agenda.
Do you feel that the European Union is finding itself in a perhaps more precarious position regarding whether the reforms in the agricultural sector or goals when it comes to the climate crisis?
Yeah, I think increasingly so. There does seem to be a disconnect between the agenda, the policies, and the kind of momentum and the people who are on the receiving end. And ultimately, it's easy to, in one way, to regulate and drive policy. Actually implement and deliver those actions is much harder, and I think increasingly so. And this is obviously not just in relation to climate policy. I think it's probably in all political spheres. We're seeing that breakdown, and that's when you get in these kind of elites versus working people type paradigms. And I'm quite concerned that the climate change agenda, which involves everyone and needs everyone to pull their weight and help in certain ways, I'm worried that's going to get completely tainted by this kind of us and them mentality, and that is ultimately going to mean that we're going to miss all of our climate change objectives quite substantially.
All right, great stuff. Chris Hocknell, thank you very much for joining us from the NewsHour. Do appreciate your analysis.
Thank you.